If you're a beginner runner in 2025, this video is for you, but it's also going to be helpful for anyone that's coming back from injury, anyone that just wants to know a bit more about the fundamentals of running. I think it'll still help a lot of people, but let's get straight into it. It is actually a very exciting time in your running journey to be a beginner as a runner, and the reason for this is because you get a lot of beginner gains in the first few months or even year or first couple years. And it's similar to how when you first hit the gym you get a lot of that beginner strength, and this is because you start to build those physiological adaptations that are going to help you. So just getting in the miles, getting in the kilometers day in day out, that's going to help you. The body sorts itself out by going through the adaptations that are necessary to adapt to running, because it knows that you're running a lot now and it has to adapt to be able to make you a better runner, to be able to make you run for longer and without getting too tired. So it's a natural thing that happens, and that's the exciting thing. Once you get a little bit more experience, you have to do a bit more specific stuff to get these small marginal improvements, but you're not going to hit that immediately, so you might as well enjoy the beginner gains while you can. Now my first tip is something that I've talked about quite a lot on my channel, and that is to focus on frequency over distance per run. Instead of doing a huge long run on a weekend just because you see that elite runners do that, I think it's more beneficial to spread out that mileage into more frequency throughout the week. So don't have too many rest days in a row. Obviously resting is important. You want to be able to recover before you do the next session, so you don't want to go straight into running every single day. But at the same time, I'd rather do multiple short runs than one super long run where you stress the body on one particular day of the week and then you don't stress the body at all or very little for the rest of the week. So we want to even out that load, get the body used to getting out there frequently and going through a moderate level of exercise. So not like intense or long, but just like a comfortable amount of running that's sustainable week in, week out. Even as a more experienced runner, I think it's important to remember that you don't want to stress your body so much on one particular day of the week and then not do much for the rest. So that's why I like to stick to the rule of not making my long run more than 35% of my weekly mileage. Obviously, it's not a set in stone rule, it's a general guideline. I sometimes go over 35%, but I barely do that. I only do that once in a while as a one-off. Also, it's important to note that you shouldn't be looking at a week as Monday to Sunday. Sometimes you can look at it from Wednesday to Tuesday, right? There's a lot of ways to look at running, so that's why the 35% long run rule does not apply to just Monday to Sunday. Obviously, you have to look at the bigger picture. What have you been doing recently? And yeah, there's more nuance to it than just a strict don't go over 35% on your long run kind of thing. So yeah, I think that's another good thing to mention. Also, your body doesn't know the difference between a 7-day week, an 8-day week. If you don't have a 9 to 5 Monday to Friday, if you're a business owner and you have more flexibility as to when to train, you can look into doing a long run every 8 days or every 6 days. Whatever works for your schedule is perfectly fine. Your body's not going to know the difference. Now the next thing is also to avoid doing too much too soon. I feel like doing 10 weeks of average mileage is way better than doing a couple weeks really high and then burning out and then doing a few very, very low and then coming back up to like moderate and then trying to go up high again and then burning out again. That's not going to get you consistent gains. It's going to be more risk for injury as well. So we want to try and maintain a really, really comfortable load and then move up as we're ready to do so. And if you want to move up from week to week, you can do it in very, very small increments, but you don't need to rush it at all, because the cumulative gains that you get from just consistent solid work, like moderate amount of training, will get you so much further than inconsistency. So yeah, when people say consistency is key, although it sounds very cheesy, it is a very, very valid point. And yeah, I think I just wanted to elaborate on what they mean by consistency is key. Now the next thing we're going to talk about is speed training. Now, a lot of you may have heard of LT1, LT2, like threshold, VO2 maximum, that sort of stuff. I think it can get very, very confusing at the start, and it's actually really important to know that you as a beginner runner have not built those physiological adaptations yet where it's easy for you to stay at a certain intensity and then the next intensity and then the next intensity. Like elite runners are very good at staying at one intensity for a very long amount of time, but a beginner runner is going to be hindered by their aerobic base. So if you've not heard before, there are 3 energy systems in the body: the ATP-PC system, the glycolytic system, and the aerobic energy system. And you're always using a combination of the 3 energy systems. Obviously when you're running slow and long, you're heavily dominated by the aerobic system, but as you get quicker, you're going to have a little bit more contribution from the faster energy systems that produce a little bit more energy in a shorter amount of time, so the rate of energy production is a bit higher, but the total yield of energy is a bit less, so you eventually have to rely back on the aerobic system again. We know that if you really build that huge aerobic system and aerobic engine, it allows you to rely less on the other energy systems, and that is exactly why a faster runner or an elite runner can stay at a certain intensity for a longer amount of time, because they're still more aerobically developed. They have the mitochondrial adaptations, they have the capillarization, they have the favorable stroke volume, and all these factors, stronger heart muscle, all of them help out with being able to stay and rely on the aerobic energy system as much as possible, so that they're not relying on unsustainable energy systems, which is the glycolytic and ATP PC system. So I hope that explains a little bit as to why it's hard for you to stay at a low heart rate. It's hard for you to stay at LT1 because it's really easy for you to overdo it because you don't have the adaptations yet. But if you do consistent training over months of training, you will build those physiological adaptations. Same thing with if you get injured. Obviously, you're not going to lose all your adaptations in a certain amount of time. Some adaptations go down a bit quicker. Some adaptations stay for a fair amount of time, even if you're injured for a while. But when you're coming back from injury, you do have a little bit of physiological adaptations to try and get back before you can train at the same level that you were before. So the important thing there is, again, to not rush it and try and be patient, be consistent with a comfortable amount of training that feels sustainable week in, week out for months on end. And then you'll hit a point where you feel like you're really comfortable, you're ready to step it up. And that's how you do sustainable training over multiple years. And again, like I said, if you run for multiple years, that's an unfair advantage that you have over your peers because you get so much more gains that way. Now, I talked about the aerobic energy system and the aerobic base, and the most important thing to know about that is to build that, you need to do a lot of easy running. Now, there is a time and place for doing fast running as well. And as I alluded to earlier, you can actually just not focus on threshold and VO2 max and just think of it as hard running, easy running at the start. I think that's the best simple way that's sustainable because you don't want to like overwhelm yourself with information. But when we're talking about the easy running, we still need to do a lot of that. That needs to be the majority of our training because we're trying to build that aerobic base so that we get those benefits later on. And the best way to focus on easy running is not to look at heart rate. Your heart rate is not going to be a great indicator when you're first new to running because you haven't had the physiological adaptations yet. So the best way to do it is what pace feels like a conversational effort. What pace can I still have a conversation with whoever I'm running with? Or what pace just feels truly easy where I'm not pushing it at all. It feels like I can do it for basically the whole day. That's what you want to stick to, and from day to day that might change. You might feel a bit better on some days, you might feel a bit worse on other days, but as long as you feel easy on that given day at that pace, I think it's totally fine. I have such a big range of what pace feels easier on a particular day versus another day, and that's totally fine because I'm just running by feel and I'm not going to be influenced by whoever I'm running with and whatnot. If I need to get dropped by a pack, I'm happily going to be dropped by a pack and run alone. The next tip we're going to talk about is running shoes. Now, there's a whole market out there. It can be very overwhelming. I've actually made 3 videos specifically on how to pick a good running shoe for your training and racing as well. But the main mistake I see people make is that they hop onto trends, they get what's popular, they get whatever their friend gets, but everyone's feet are different, so it's really important to get fitted into running shoes. Hopefully you guys have a running shoe store they can visit where they have staff that are experienced with running shoes and they can measure you up, look at your walking pattern, running pattern, and then put you into a shoe that fits well with you. But if you don't, I think just watch my videos that I made about running shoes and that will help a lot. But just know that running shoes are very individual, so don't just go and buy whatever everyone else buys. There's also probably a more economical way to get running shoes, so definitely keep an eye out for good deals and stuff like that as well. I think the most important thing though is if you're thinking of running more frequently than before, it's important to have a running shoe rotation because every shoe will stress the leg in different ways depending on the flexibility, softness, the heel to toe drop, and I talk about all this stuff on the videos that I made about running shoes. But the most important thing is to rotate the shoes because you're going to stress different parts of the leg with each shoe. So as a runner that runs every single day, I cannot run with the same shoe every single day because I'm just going to injure one particular part of the leg all the time if I run one pair of shoes all the time. And my final tip that I'm going to tell you guys is that running is very demanding on the body. When you run, use carbs. Use carbs for your day-to-day activity. Also, when you're recovering from running afterwards, your bone remodeling requires carbs. And also, you gotta replenish the glycogen storage that you just used up. That requires carbs as well. And also, muscle recovery is not always just about protein, it's also about carbs. So yes, get your protein in after runs, but refueling with carbs is also important. As a runner that runs every single day, I literally do not think about calories at all. I just try and eat as much as humanly possible, and I even am at the stage where I have to rely on as many liquid calories to supplement the calories on top of the food that I'm eating. So yeah, don't worry too much about calories. Obviously, this is not nutritionist advice. There are situations where you should get nutritionist advice before, trying out new things. But for the most part, just remember that running is very energy demanding, and the running lifestyle in itself requires a lot of carbohydrates. So make sure you eat enough. So definitely try and keep that in the back of your mind, because under eating is actually a very, very quick way to get injuries. So I want that to be super clear to everyone getting into running, because it's exciting to be able to run more, but you want to make sure that it's sustainable. If this was helpful at all, please leave a like, comment below what you want to see next. But yeah, I make a ton of videos like this, so subscribe if you want to hop on the journey. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.